Well, today we are talking with Kit Frick. Hi, Kit.
Hello there.
And we're here to talk about your latest book called Friends and Liars. Yes. That story is about four friends, some of whom might be liars. So tell us about Claire and Harper and Luca and Serena, all those.
Yeah. So this is a story about a group of college friends. The story is set 5 years post-college. Claire has died 5 years prior, in a what was either a tragic accident or possibly a suicide. It's not known. At her family's fabulous vacation home on Lake Como in Italy. Claire is an heiress to the Monroe family fortune. Her father is a Hollywood venture capitalist. Her mother comes from old money New England stock. And everyone else, our group of four who we catch up with 5 years later, is returning to the Palazzo, to the place where Claire died, for a celebration of life, a memorial week being hosted by her family. And yes, this is a group of friends that met at a small liberal arts college in Massachusetts. They were very close during the latter half of college, but have become somewhat estranged in the last few years following Claire's death. And this memorial celebration, they all feel compelled to attend for Claire's sake, but they also know it's a risk to attend because they're each harboring secrets that they know it's going to be hard to keep hidden during this week.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the major conflicts that each of these people have? I mean, not just Claire, but, you know, Harper and Luca.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, they're each hiding a secret, right? So, they they know that in the hours leading up to Claire's death, that New Year's Eve 5 winters ago, each of them betrayed Claire in some way. And so they each feel this sense of guilt and responsibility about Claire's death, even though, each of them was not directly responsible. They know they each played a part in what happened. Claire swallowed a bottle of pills and a bottle of red wine, whether it was purposeful or accidental. She then drowned in Lake Como. So they're all right, they're all conflicted. And some of those secrets I need to keep secret for the reading experience.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah, right, right. We don't want to do any kind of spoiler. And I have a question later that you can certainly decline to answer. Um, well, gifts to friends and blackmail all play a real important part in this plot. What gave you the idea to use these elements in the story?
yes. So when each of Claire's four friends arrive to Palazzo Mela, it's just the first night. They've had a welcome drinks on the terrace. And when everyone goes back to their rooms, they start to find that things are a little bit strange. Someone here knows exactly what happened to Claire that night 5 years ago, and they're going to make sure that each of her friends feels the full weight of the responsibility that they played in her death. So yes, you mentioned gifts. Everyone except Harper, mysteriously, we don't know why yet, receives a gift in their room on that first night that they think maybe is a welcome gift, but is probably a threat. So that's the first clue that it's was probably a bad decision to attend this memorial. Um, the threats escalate and it becomes solidified in each of our characters' minds that nope, these were not gifts. These were definitely pointed threats when they receive notes, and then it escalates into full-fledged blackmail. So I think you asked why I chose to include these plot elements. It was a sort of escalation. I wanted it to be pointed, but a little bit ambiguous in the characters' minds at first, although it's obvious to the reader that these are threats, and then escalate as the narrative plays out. It's a bit of a game of cat and mouse. I think it's a fun element
Yes.
for a mystery. Yeah.
Um, there seem to be several themes going on here. Certainly the importance of friendship and trust. Um, but there is another main theme, and I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, or if that's a spoiler.
All right, well, let's see. Hit me with it.
Well, um, what about Samuel?
Yes.
The Mr. Monroe.
Yes, this is Claire. So Claire's father, he's our Hollywood venture capitalist. And what to say about Samuel? He is a figure that is somewhat feared by Claire's friends. He's shown himself to have a bit of a temper. And he has also remained somewhat mysterious to them, I think. He's Claire's father, and when they were in college, to varying degrees, they got to know him a little bit, especially Harper, who visited Claire, who was Claire's best friend in college, and visited her at their Malibu home over breaks. And then David, who was Claire's boyfriend in college, has gotten to know him and his wife, Helena, a bit. And I'll speak a bit about Helena as well. She's Claire's mother, and she has become addicted to opioids following an accident several years back where she was thrown from a horse. And she's a little bit loopy, a little bit unable to fulfill the family matriarchal role of being a Monroe. So her sister has sort of taken on that head of family role. All the Monroes are a little bit eccentric, a little bit mysterious, and probably hiding something.
Yeah, okay, well, we won't say what. Um, you have written several YA books, and I think this is your second adult novel, is
It
that right?
is.
Okay. Is there a big difference between writing for those two audiences?
There isn't as large a difference as you might think. All of my books are suspense, and for me, the storytelling is really the thing that comes first for me. And writing a good mystery is writing a good mystery, whether you're writing for a teen audience or an adult audience. There are certainly things that I would frame differently or approach differently for a teen audience versus an adult audience, but I have never found writing for teens that anything is completely taboo or off limits. Um, I have found that one difference from a plotting perspective, when you're writing adult characters, they don't have the same restrictions in their lives that teen characters do. They're not in school 5 days a week. They do not have curfews and parents and device restrictions and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit more freedom writing adult characters, which is both freeing, but also means that sometimes those obstacles can be good when you're writing a mystery, right? So there are times when I've liked in YA having those restrictions built in, and then have had to think a little bit harder for writing these adult characters with more freedoms in their lives, what I'm going to use to throw in their way or hem them in a little bit.
Well, how long does it take you to write a novel, and what is your writing environment like?
I'll answer the second part of your question first, because it's the more straightforward answer. I write at home, and I have a really lovely home office at the moment. I moved into my house in 2019, so for the past few years, I've been writing here in my office. Prior to that, I shared a smallish New York apartment with my spouse. And was writing on the couch a lot. Um,
You're a couch writer.
yeah, I still write on the couch a lot, but now I'm lucky to have my own office space to be in. In terms of how long it takes me to draft, that has really varied. I have these five YA novels out and two for adults. And for the first few novels that I was writing, I had just left my full-time job. I've always had a day job in addition to writing, but I shifted from a full-time desk job to freelancing. And so when I was first starting out as a professional writer, I had a lot more time on my hands. I did not have children, and I was just balancing it with this freelance work. So I could often draft a novel in 3 months, 4 months, maybe for
Oh.
first draft. Revising the whole process takes much longer than that. But when we're just talking first draft, now I have a child, and it is a whole different experience. Friends and Liars is actually the first novel that I wrote from start to finish following the birth of my daughter. I'd revised a couple of books after she was born. But I want to say it was maybe 8 or 9 months writing the first draft. And that was for me, who's used to writing that first draft kind of at a clip. It felt very drawn out. I was only able to write a couple of days a week. She wasn't full time in daycare yet. And I do like to have a lot of momentum when I'm drafting. So this one was a bit of a struggle in terms of getting that first draft done, just because I had so many limitations on my time, and also just my brain space, like having to divide that with being a parent. It's a whole other challenge. But now Ramona's in daycare full time, and I'm sort of back to my more
Back
like
to
maybe like 4 or 5 months is an average now.
how many hours? I mean, how
Oh,
many
I
hours
wish
a
I
day?
knew. I've never I should keep track sometime, just for fun to know. But I mean hundreds, right? Countless hours.
Every day, every day.
On a writing day, I usually do try to devote the majority of that workday to writing. So I will often have, a solid maybe 6 hours that I put in on a writing day.
Yeah.
And uh I used to write on weekends, again before I had a kid. And sometimes I could write for 10 hours, I would really
Wow.
it was a whole different lifetime.
Well, when you were in college, you interned at Simon and Schuster.
That's true.
Your books are published by Mick Elderberry
Oh,
and
it's actually it
Emily Bestler
yeah.
books at Simon and Schuster. Did that make it easier for you to get published?
No, I don't think so. I think they loved learning when I had my first call with the editor who acquired my first YA novel at McElderry at Simon and Schuster. She's no longer there. Her name's Ruta Remus. She's fabulous editor. When I had that first phone call with her when she was interested in acquiring my first novel, I shared with her that I had interned for Simon and Schuster in college, and she was delighted. And I think this became like a sort of fun little nugget for the team there. But no, they weren't even aware that I'd been an intern. I interned for actually a primarily nonfiction imprint of
Mm.
SNS's adult division that hasn't been around in years. No one that I used to work with is still at Simon and Schuster. So yeah, I did. It was not a shoe in the door, but it was, I think it was a fun anecdote.
Sure. And how did you find your agent?
Through cold querying. I don't have no special story really with finding my agent. I signed with Aaron Harris at Folio in 2015. And I was querying my first young adult novel, and she was one of maybe 40, 45 agents who I queried, who represented. I knew that I wanted to write both in YA and adult. So I was only querying agents who represented both age categories because that was a goal from the beginning. And she
Good goal. Good goal.
yeah, it took a while to get there, but I knew that that was, I definitely wanted someone that represented both. And so I queried maybe 40, 45 agents that represented YA and adult and focused at least one of their areas in suspense. Um, and yeah, again, like no special. It was just a cold query. She responded to the sample that I sent her, asked to read the full book. And I had a great editorial phone call with her and she offered representation. I think I had two other agents who I also spoke with at the time.
That's
And
great.
but Aaron's vision for the book very much aligned with my own. It was clearly going to be a good match.
Um,
Yeah.
how, how did you handle rejections? Did you say 40, or 4 or 5? Is
Oh no,
that
no, 45. Like
45?
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
not
just want
four
to be
to five,
clear.
45. So I probably received about 42
Yes.
rejections
And
if I
so
got
how did
three
you
yeses.
handle it? How
So
did you
yeah.
handle
Um,
it?
one thing that really helped was I had been writing as a poet for many years before I wrote my first novel. And of course, with poetry, for the vast majority of poets, you're not represented by an agent. You're sending out your own work when you are submitting to literary journals or you're submitting a manuscript to contests, open reading periods, etc. So I had a bunch of years of experience and a full catalog of rejections behind me before I started querying my novel. So I was used to receiving yeses, but also many, many no's from poems that I would send out to journals. And I had a couple of chapbook manuscripts, which are short manuscripts of poems that I had that I had published, but also, of course, received lots of rejections for. So I think I had a somewhat thicker skin than maybe some writers do going into the query trenches. And that helped a lot with staying motivated and keeping going.
Right, right. And you are managing editor at the independent Black Lawrence Press. Has that helped you, or what? Become published by a larger house, or are there some lessons that you've learned about publishing that would help writers who are trying to break in?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. After interning with Simon and Schuster, I then worked full-time for Simon and Schuster, briefly as an editorial assistant out of college. Quickly realized that trying to balance a full-time editorial role at a major New York publisher with career aspirations of being a writer myself. I know some people do it. It was not for me. So I left that position at SNS, but I didn't want to leave book publishing entirely. I changed career paths. I worked for NYU in various departments throughout the years as an academic administrator. But my close friend had worked for and then through a series of events acquired this independent publisher, Black Lawrence Press, when we were still quite young, out of college, just a couple years out. So she had been running the press for maybe 4 or 5 years when I had left SNS and was working at NYU. And she asked if I'd be interested in helping her read for one of the contests that the press was holding. And I said, yeah, sure. And that turned into working for her in kind of an ad hoc role. And then for a bunch of years, I edited our chapbook series. So I was acquiring manuscripts, working directly with authors. I think that did really help a lot then when I had my own work published, because I already knew how that editorial relationship worked from the editor's side. And I was also familiar with just the basic building blocks of the editorial and production and publicity and marketing process.
Right.
It's obviously on a different scale at a small press, but the basics are all the same. So that was really instructive and helpful as an author. Now I'm the managing editor, so I work on sort of bigger picture goals for the press, and it works really well now. I found that even that editorial role was a lot to balance with being an author as my writing career really picked up. So now I'm working in a more administrative and managerial role, and it's great. It's the perfect balance for me with a writing career. And yes, I really do think that, learning how the sausage is made on other, on
Sure.
the editorial and production side of publishing, it's been so helpful. And I find that it works both ways as well, because when I'm corresponding with our authors, I'm often able to draw from my own experience as an author to say, I've been there also,
Right.
or I can provide a little bit of perspective for how this works at a big five. And in fact, it's very similar to exactly what we're doing at a small publisher, or here's how things are different. And yeah, there's a lot of synergy there.
And what's next for you?
I have two books coming out following Friends and Liars release that have both been announced, so I can chat a little bit about. So Friends and Liars is out December 2nd. Very excited about that. I have a murder mystery, my first book written under a pen name of Gigi Waldorf. The book is called Murder on the Upper East Side, and it'll be coming out from the UK in June, and then in the US in September of 2026. And it's a very fun, ultra rich New York City murder mystery. Definitely geared toward fans of Gossip Girl and Scandal. I've had a lot of fun. I'm working on revisions for that now. And then I have another book called The Night of the Party that will be coming out in sometime in spring of 2027. And these are all, by the way, these are all books for adults.
Okay.
I don't have anything going on the YA side at the moment, although Murder on the Upper East Side does take place in two timelines, and one is in high school and one is when the characters are adults. And yeah, so I have these two books coming out in 2026 and 2027. So a lot going on.
Exciting,
Yeah.
exciting. Well, Kit Frick, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Doris. This was wonderful.